You're watching News 24 Live. Earlier this week, we spoke to the chairman of the South African Jewish Board of Deputies, who were appalled by the news that BDS South Africa are inviting Palestinian liberation icon Leila Khaled to South Africa. We're joined in studio by BDS board member Brian Hanekom to defend their decision. Brian, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Why, first of all, before we get into this topic, it's obviously quite a sensitive issue, why are BDS inviting Leila Khaled to South Africa? And I believe it's not the first time she's been here. Why is there such an outpouring of outrage?
We've invited her because in the hearts and minds of the Palestinian people, she is up there like Nelson Mandela was during the struggle for South Africans. It's quite telling that the same corners that supported apartheid are up in arms against her visiting here, while actually on her previous visit she did meet Nelson Mandela, and previously she has shown solidarity with the South African people during our struggle. She was an inspiration to many ANC and liberation fighters in South Africa. Mkhonto Sizwe issued a statement this week welcoming her visit. We also have a situation where in South Africa, she is so popular that many liberation leaders, including Johnny Issow's children, were named after Leila Khaled. So I think, again, through this process, the Jewish Board of Deputies, the Zionist Federation, and indeed the Israeli Embassy have shown that they are quite blind supporters of those who oppressed our people in the past. They are again on the side of the oppressor in this issue. We find that Nelson Mandela's funeral was not attended by the Palestinian Prime Minister. It's clear to us that the Israeli government has never been a friend of liberation movements in South Africa.
Now, do you not think perhaps that another element to this is, in light of recent events, there's obviously been atrocious terrorism acts in the global community, and it's probably just more the timing of this that's upsetting people, or that people are particularly sensitive to something like this?
Not at all. I think they're unrelated. I think that the opportunistic Zionist Federation and Jewish Board of Deputies are trying to defame the peaceful BDS movement, which is a non-violent movement, a movement that advocates for sanctions, boycotts, divestment of Israel. They're trying their hardest to try to demonize the movement, but it's not going to work in South Africa. The traction is not going to be found because in South Africa we have always looked up to icons like Che Guevara, and Leila Khaled is one of those icons, those who fought in the liberation movement here were very clear in their alignment. It was very clear during apartheid that certain organizations did not stand in solidarity with the many Jewish activists who fought against apartheid. One of those most prominent organizations is the Jewish Board of Deputies, which in its own admission failed to support the likes of Dennis Goldberg and Ronnie Kasrils. In fact, at the time when they fought apartheid, they were not considered Jewish enough. We have the same phenomenon today where those Jewish people who stand up against apartheid Israel's terrorism, because it's the state of Israel that is breaking international law, most recently by attacking Gaza. Despite the world condemnation, they continued to annihilate a piece of land filled with unarmed individuals. We've also seen that Israeli government have used chemical warfare, white phosphorus. We've seen them using cluster bombs on schools like the Yuanwa school, and we've seen the international community condemn them. Ultimately, those are acts of terror. The day-to-day harassment of Palestinian women and elderly by 16, 17-year-old Israeli soldiers who are there through forced conscription, that is terrorizing people on a day-to-day basis. The Palestinian people are not terrorists, the Palestinian government's not a terrorist movement, and certainly not Leila Khaled, who resisted this terrible regime.
Now, on that note, I suppose the image that she portrays, she is a convicted plane hijacker, images of her brandishing an AK-47. Those are the kind of images, and I suppose that's the kind of message that she portrays for a lot of people, and hence the outrage. You guys obviously hold her in a very different light.
Well, of course, there are photographs, if one looks in the archives, of Tata Nelson Mandela holding an AK-47. Nelson Mandela founded the military wing of the ANC, Mkhonto Sizwe, along with none other than Dennis Goldberg, a very well-known Jewish Rivonia trialist. They founded Mkhonto weSizwe, and their approach was to target infrastructure. The approach taken by Leila Khaled was to do hostage exchanges without any intention of hurting anybody, and quite successfully they did embark on that campaign. It's not currently something they're doing now. She's not active at the moment in such activities, but the fact that she was willing to risk her life, willing to take up arms, willing to struggle for freedom of her people is very inspirational. I'm sure the same people will tell you that Che Guevara is a terrorist himself. The same people probably would have argued very vigorously during the early 90s that Nelson Mandela was a terrorist as well. Now, ironically, they want to pretend to have been on the correct side of history. In the case of Palestine, there's David and Goliath. And quite frankly, Leila Khaled is a very, very well-respected person who should be given diplomatic treatment in South Africa. She's very well established. She has inspired many young people to fight against the apartheid regime during the struggle. You can't have a situation where South African people can be misled by a racist right-wing group that only seems to be concerned for protecting the Israeli government at all costs, without criticizing the Israeli government in their recent annihilation of Gaza, and then allow those small elite lobby groups to project their view that people who have inspired our liberation leaders are now the devil. It can't be.